What's on the bench today? Stay tuned to find out. It is a Pioneer stereo. Yay! SX-680. Good old days of university. Seen a little better days. As usual, this just came to me from a friend. Said it doesn't work anymore. Unfortunately, that's all I got. This was probably acquired through OSAP. And if you're of a certain generation of Ontario, that stands for Ontario Stereo Acquisition Program. Well, actually, Ontario Secondary something. I'll look it up. A lot of the guys, first thing they did when they got their money from the government was they went out and bought a stereo, and they probably sold a lot of these. Get it hooked up to the Variac, not the Variac, but the dim bulb tester, and some speakers to see if I get any sound out of it. Okay, we're set up with a speaker. I got it on FM. Everything in the middle. Stereo. Mono on. Stereo on, mono on, tape monitor off, loudness off. It's on the dim bulb tester all hooked in. Let's see if we get any power. Oh, we're getting humming. Doesn't look like any of the lights are going. That's shorting out. So it's shorting out on speaker A. So I did a quick check on channel A and B. Both of them tend to be bad. A tend to be much worse than B. B, I just get a little burnout, then I get the dim bulb coming on almost full. So time to take her apart and see what's going on inside. While I'm busily cracking this puppy open, here are a few words on the SX-80 series of receivers. The SX-80 series was introduced in about 1978 and produced until about 1980. The 8 in the nomenclature most likely reflects the date of introduction. The lineup had 8 models, starting with the 580 that came in at about $300, all the way up to the 1980, which was about $3,000. All of them had at least 2 view meters and an FM signal meter. And as each model progressed up the series, more power was added, along with an ever-increasing number of controls, resulting in some 31 different controls on the high-end 1980 model. Now, the 680 has a respectable 30 watts of power, along with all the expected controls you should ever want. This is probably why it's still very much desired in the retro stereo market, as it has a good balance of power, sound quality, and functionality. Okay, it looks like I'm finished cracking her open. Let's have a look inside now. Fortunately, we can skip over most of the inspection. I only found 3 minor things. Some cobbler who was here before me decided to take out the little circuit board and the fuse here, and hooked up the disconnected wires with a Molex connector. There was a poor repair of a ground lead break here, and I noticed that there could have been a few parts replaced here and there, as there is evidence of rework on the circuit board. Since I didn't find anything of major concern during the initial inspection, and I'd already powered it up anyway without releasing the magic smoke, I decided to dive right in to check the power supply voltages. Fortunately, a PDF of the service manual is available online, and it includes both a schematic and a labeled circuit board layout, though it's a bit sparse in other details. This is the schematic for the power supply section of the 680. There's not really much to it, only 3 windings coming off the transformer. Unfortunately, the service manual doesn't specify the exact voltages, so I had to make an educated guess. For the green to green winding, I guessed it was about 50 volts AC, and I measured between points 11 and 12, and I used the chassis as a reference ground. Both of these points were clearly marked on the circuit board view and were easy to find, and I got 49 and 49 volts AC respectively. Next, the red winding connecting to points 14 and 15. Again, these were clearly marked on the board layout. Again, no voltage was listed. I estimated about 35 volts, and I measured 35 volts on both. Finally, there was the blue winding, and all I did there was simply disconnected the Molex connector and took a reading across the winding. I guessed about 8 volts and measured 8.9, which is close enough. Well, no surprises here, as I'd already powered it up and observed some forms of life, but it's always good to confirm that the transformer is putting out the correct voltages. Well, the service manual didn't have a list of expected values for any voltages that might be found. I had to scan through the schematic and see if there was any labeled voltages. I did find a few components where the voltage was noted, but figuring out where to start was a little tricky. I decided to start by measuring 5 key voltages. My reasoning was that each of these points was the output of a circuit section. Therefore, if the voltage was good at that point, the preceding stages were likely functioning correctly. For example, if I measured 45 volts or so at this point, that indicates that the circuit before was working perfectly. If not, then I could work backwards through the components on the schematic and find the one that was at fault. The first test point was the emitter of transistor Q402, which should be about 45 volts DC, and I measured 48, which is fine, as the voltage is essentially unregulated, so small variations expected at all these points. So this part of the power supply rail is working correctly. The emitter of transistor Q401 was next, and the expected value was 13.6 volts, and I got 14.5 volts. Again, a little high, but perfectly acceptable. So that's this part of the power supply rail done, and I think this part supplies the AM and FM radio sections. The next section of the power supply was a little trickier to measure. I had to take all my readings referencing circuit ground versus the chassis ground like before. Again, the service manual didn't mention this, I just happened to notice it when I made my first reading. Now, the expected voltage at R408 was 34.5, and I got 33.5. And R409, I expected negative 34.4, and I measured negative 33.5. So far, so good. My positive and negative voltages are roughly balanced. And the next measurement is where things went off the rails. On the left side of resistor R410, I should see negative 33.3 volts. Instead, I got positive 10 volts. That's a major issue. So I quickly turned things off and went and had a good look at the schematic. Looking closer at the schematic, the problem can only be in one of two places, capacitor C415 or resistor R410. Now I checked the values of these two components. For C415, I got 190 UF and basically no ESR, which is fine. And for R410, I couldn't get a reading at all, so I figured it had to come out. While I'm busily swapping out that resistor, let's have a look at why I was getting positive 10 volts at that point. Even after I took the resistor out, I couldn't get a reading on it, so it was either fully open or well into the megohms that my meter couldn't measure. So without that resistor, the circuit looks like this, and I would think I would have gotten a value of 3 volts or so, as I'm not connected to the negative 30 volt rail. Now, if I followed that circuit along, it leads down to the collector of this transistor, and I think this is setting the bias of the main power amplifier of the receiver. That might explain why one channel is 100% shorted out, while the other has a little life in it. The one that is not shorting out is a little further along the circuit, and not as affected by that plus 10 volts. Unfortunately, I never did figure out where that positive 10 volts is coming from, but since I'm down here in the power amplifier section, let's have a quick few words on the STK 0039. This was a Sanyo IC. Basically, it's a Darlington pair with some complementary stuff stuffed in. At the time, it was considered quite high-tech, as the manufacturer didn't have to select out transistors and resistors and capacitors to create a balanced Darlington pair. He just bought the IC. The problem these days is that these are about 100% unobtainium as you can get. Yes, there might be a few new old stock parts out in the odd stereo repair shop someplace that do wind up on eBay if you're very lucky, but I can almost guarantee anything you get off of AliExpress is either going to be 100% fake or some pull off some dead piece of equipment. There are supposed replacements for the STK 039s offered by some sellers online, but again, these might look like the original and be labeled as such, but there is absolutely no guarantee that the end sides are anything like the original Sanyo design. This problem with the STK 0039 is well known by the repair community. There's even do-it-yourself replacements made up of discrete components, though I doubt you'll ever get the same performance as an original 0039. So the lesson here is, unless both of these 0039s are still in good shape, there's no use in going any further in this repair. Unfortunately, the only way to test them is to remove them, and I've been forewarned by others that there's a pretty good chance of killing them if you do try to remove them. So the only way to truly test them is to power it up and hope that it runs. Looks like I'm finished swapping out the resistors, so let's go see if that had any effect.
Perfect. Looks nice and tight. Well, let's see what we get for voltages now. Off. Back on there. Right there, huh? Put the right value. -32, that's much better than +10. And what I'm getting down here now. That's better. So 7. Hey, -1.4. And over here, -1.4. Great. Yep, I'm getting some reaction out of the speakers. Good. It's probably doing something. Let me hook some speakers up and see if I get some noise out of it. So a little further ahead, I'm getting nothing but static out of it. Hopefully you can hear that. But at least it's not shorting out. Kind of tuning something in. Doesn't like AM very much. Hey! How about that? It's getting AM.
I think this game is really, really good, and I think that's why, a lot of guys and they're coming over here shortly, and they'll have a very good chance to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
How did Utah?
So it's savable. Let me try the other channel. It looks like the B channel doesn't want to get me any noise out. It's not working at all.
12 seconds later.
Oh, there we go. It's getting something. Just need the time to catch in there.
I think what I just experienced was the process of the cats reforming, as that would explain why channel B came on after it was powered up for a few minutes. Now that I know I have a good pair of TK0039s, I doffed off an email to the client, and she was all for full recapping. Fortunately, there are a number of good sellers on eBay, and I picked one that another radio club member said he had good luck with.
So while I'm waiting for the caps to come in, I took the knobs off. Put them in here, but of course I got one knob that doesn't want to come off. Now, you don't want to pry these damn things. There is a trick to taking them off, which the elders have taken to me. Take a bootlace, stick it in like that, twist it on the bottom if you can get it, and then pull the lace off. There we go. Pops right off. It stops from cracking it or twisting it the wrong way. Got it on a coaster now too. Anyway, got those buttons off. Clean those up. I'm going to give it a general cleaning of all the switches. It's supposedly this switch, no, that's a good switch. This one they fixed. I'll clean up all these switches and lubricate all the pots. To clean out all the pots and the other stuff, I use D5. There's no problem. It doesn't destroy pots. Don't know where that rumor came from. I wouldn't use it on an ancient pot from a 100-year-old Marconi, for example, because all you're going to do is wash out any carbon that might remain. Okay, one other thing I want to do is I want to put this back to stock. So take that off. That blotch there. I don't know why they did that. Maybe these caps have been changed at one time. But all I did was I had some old phonetic board in the back, a couple of screws and a fuse mount, and that should just go nicely in there. But I'm not going to put it in now because I'm going to have to take out those caps anyway, but it was just something I did along the line. The next thing I want to do before I play in the inside is clean up this mess over here with all these wires hanging in outer space. I'll see if I can fix that correctly. Let me have a look at it first. What a mess. So the solution is fairly simple. I'll just lift that thing. I've got a little crimp connector. I'll hook up those 3 wires into the crimp connector and just bend that up and stick it in there. I think that's what I'll do. Line around, I'll connect it there. Good. There. One other thing is there's usually foam in here at the corner. It just decays, gets in the gears. So I replace that with just a little bit of weather stripping. Little foam weather stripping. Works perfectly fine. We'll see, that's just a light barrier. There we go. Okay. Now, let's hurry up and wait for my caps to come in.
4 to 6 weeks later.
Yay! My cap kit came in finally. Thank you, Canada Post, for not going on strike. And that wonder across the border, I didn't have to pay tariffs on it. Anyway, let's see what's inside. I got the Pioneer SX-680 receiver deluxe upgrade kit. Yeah, 680. No. Yeah. Let's see what's in here. Dull razor knife. There we go. Okay. Lots of caps. More caps. More caps. 1,000. Okay. 63 volts. And nice ones too. A little smaller, but then that's expected. Pioneer indicator. 680 promo phono. Okay, so it tells you which one's which. Main power board, power supply, so all the caps for the power supply, house labels, to access PDF documents, blah 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 blah, eBay sales links. Okay, so I'll have to get the PDF for that and look at it. That's the pre-tone, that's good, it all comes from a different box. Main, perfect. We'll get started on that. Okay, all set up to go. As it says in the instructions, I'm going to do one at a time. Start with the power supply. Pre-tone, where's power supply? Settings, power supply. No, power indicator. Pioneer, phono, main. Phono, tone, main board, power supply, there we go. Which is actually these ones. They're the 2 big ones right there. I've got my schematic up there where everything's marked out. Red dot being the positive. There's my caps. all in nice order. Put them in one at a time. And there's the thing, the box. And over there is my desoldering gun, and I'll start at it. What I'm first going to do is the power supply, then try running it again to see what it sounds like to make sure I got everything going. First thing I'm going to do is take out these big caps and leave them out and put them back in at the end, just so I have more room to work in there, because it's pretty cramped. Anyway, let's see how that works. See if we get some power. AM speakers off. On a thing. Tape monitor volume. Put it on low. Loudness off. Let's see here. Yay, we got power back. Lights all come on. Dim bulb doesn't go. Looks like we're okay. I'll test the power after that and see what I get.
Not much to say on the recapping. It was straightforward and I had no problems with finding where the caps go. The only caveat I have for taking on a recapping job like this is not to underestimate the time it will take. Otherwise you'll end up losing money. As even with a good solder sucker and no snafus, it did take about 5 hours, though I think it would go much faster the next time I do one.
6.5 hours later.
Well, just doing the last of the test. This is auxiliary input. Getting signal out on at least one channel, that's all we really need. And we'll flip that around. Put that on phono. Let's see if I can... It's on phono. Lots out of phono. Cool. Alright. All I have to do is put in that last card and it should be all done. Cool. Now, just put my little handy dandy new circuit board in there. It always pays to do a double inspection of everything. I noticed that the wire on the plug is cut, so I'll have to fix that. Shouldn't take too. So here's the shell. Shellac and nice and gleamy. I didn't bother to put the ugly plastic stuff back on because I took the plastic stuff off, and underneath was lovely old rubber wood. So I just put a little mahogany where there was really bad edges, and hit it with shellac a few million times. So I'll stick that back in there now. Not authentic, but it certainly looks nice. Hopefully whoever... Yeah, it all screwed in. Let's put these buttons back on. There we go. Sweet. I kind of like that color. There we go. All complete. Time to put it away.
At Pioneer, we don't build a high-fidelity receiver the way some of our competitors do. Instead of a pressboard bottom, our SX-680 has a metal one that limits interference. It has power meters and a DC power supply for richer bass. It's things like this that have made Pioneer #1 among people who care about music. And isn't that why you buy high-fidelity components?
See and hear Pioneer at these Sound Shop locations.